Afternoon, everyone. I just thought I'd do it the other way around for a change. Welcome to my sermon, Friday sermon, new trend. Heads up, when we go back to shul in a couple of weeks' time, I think I'll probably end up giving the same sermon Friday and Shabbos. So if you're planning to come Shabbos, you'll have to not tune into these broadcasts. Any rate, okay. Please turn, if you've got a siddur, page 510, we're going to sing together Shir Malot Desainai, particularly for those who are unwell and for the situation in which we find ourselves. Shir Malois Esoinai Eleharim Meyayin Yavo Ezri Meyim Adonai Oise Shamayim Loretz Al Yitei Lamoit Raglecha Al Yanum Shoin Recha Hinei Lo Yanum Lo Yishan Shoin Yisroel Adonai Shoin Merecha Adonai Tilcha Al Yad Yaminecha Yoima Mashemesh Lo Yakeka V'yoreyach B'layla Adonai Yishmorecha Mikol Ra Yishmor Es Nafshecha Adonai Yishmor Tzeitzcha V'yecha Me'ata V'yad Olam. A song of ascent. I lift my eyes up to the hills. From where will my help come? Comes from the Lord who makes heaven and earth. He will not let your foot stumble. He who guards you does not slumber. The guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. The Lord is your guardian, your shade at your right hand. The sun will not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord will guard you from all harm. He will guard your life. The Lord will guard your going and coming, now and forevermore. Prayers for those who are unwell. If you have a name to add, please do say it to yourself at the point in the prayer where we say the names. Mi shever chavseinu v'tziyakam Moshe Dov Shloimei hu yivorech es kol ptuim b'tera v'nagiv ha'korona v'es Pesach ben Edo v'es Miriam bas Neta v'es Yitzhak ben Miriam v'es Chayfega bas Pesha v'es Bunish Michas ben Miriam v'es Chana bas Nechama v'es Yonis ben Malkias es Licher bas Rezo Bracha v'es Chaim Tovi David ben Chayli Leah v'es Avram Shag ben Sarah Tevora v'es Baruch Shimon ben Fredo v'es Pesach ben Sheni Gita v'es Shem ben Chana Liba v'es Pesach Yes, Shlomo ben Mindel, yes, Avram ben Sarpero, yes, Moshe Melech ben Mashafega, yes, Mordechai David ben Cyril, yes, Yaakov ben Miriam, yes, Michal ben Henya, yes, Yonasan ben Sorev, yes, Kasriel ben Fredo, yes, Pinchas ben Levi, yes, Yizum ben Zechariah, yes, Baruch ben Tovachayim, yes, Yehuda Chaim ben Esther Bracha, yes, Shmuel Reuven ben Nechama Esther, yes, Shmuel Yehuda ben Kayla, yes, Rafael Hirsch, Yonah ben Chana, yes, Yirmiyahu ben Sorev, yes, Wolf ben Pauline, yes, Yitzhak Isaac ben Yehudis Rachel, yes, Nasan ben Shoshana, yes, Meir ben Malka, yes, David ben Tov, yes, Moshe ben Shifra Rachel, yes, Shoshana bas Sipora, yes, Shenda bas Sor, yes, Malka bas Chana, yes, Esther Chana bas Tavur, yes, Esther bas Rachel, yes, Herschel bas Rachel, yes, Francis bas Herschel, yes, Leah bas Karen, yes, Yoel bas Sora, yes, Deborah bas Gittul, yes, Simon Masha bas Yacham, yes, Lamis bas Chai Liba, yes, Deborah bas Sora Liba, yes, Gali bas Sora, yes, Yudis bas Bela, yes, Leah bas Etel, yes, Bracha bas Fega, Vavoshim Zaka Bavaram, bis Chazek Shbach Yachim Leim Lachin Apes Lachazek Lachin Yosam, Bishlach Leim Meir Fushem Shalom Chavim Chogdem, so Shechon Esof Nefesh Zakov, Hashtag Galavizon Karif, B'Neima Amen. We sung live to those with the altar this week as follows. Shabbat, Stephen Bergerman for his mother, June Green for her mother, Sylvia Mendick for her husband. On Sunday, Stephen Fisher for his mother, Pamela Goldring for her father, Arnold Levan for his father, Blanche Perlmutter for her husband, John Saffer for his mother, and Stephen Wallen for his father. On Monday, Sarah Silver for her mother. On Tuesday, Lisa Batashvili for her husband, Ellie, and Jerry and Michael for their father. Sam Grossman for his mother, Mari Rose for her mother, and Eric Siegel for his mother. On Wednesday, Stuart Burke for his mother, Francine Denton for her brother, Xenia Esterson for her mother, Cyril Kirsch for his sister, and David Rose for his mother. On Thursday, Marlene Grant for her sister, Anne and Jacqueline Rackison for their mother, Nanette Wernick for her father. On Friday, Phil Kaplan for his father, Shirley Diamond for her mother-in-law, Adrian Frankel for his mother, Linda Gold for her mother, Maggie Kay for her father, Yvonne Mason for her mother, Stephen Sharp for his father, and Beryl Shaw for her sister. We wish them all long life, along with the family of Mari Cohen, Miriam Bass, Shimon Halevi. We wish long life to them, to her brother Charles Jackson, and her children Sharon Cavendish and Raymond Cohen. Miriam Bass, Shimon Halevi. Yes, Drezel Bas Yitzhak, yes, Yaakov ben Yedidia, yes, Avram Meir ben Yerachmiel, yes, Hinda Bas Tzvi Mordechai Levi, yes, Pinchas ben Kalman, yes, Shabtalia ben Rav Yitzhak, yes, Rus Rivka Bas Sorev, yes, Devorah Bas Yitzhak, yes, Rivka Bas Nissen, yes, Sarah Bas David, yes, Vega Leah Bas Binyamin Yoel, yes, Binyamin ben Nissen Cohen, yes, Leah Bas Avram, yes, Mindo Bas Yitzhak, yes, Mordechai ben Yosef, Ba'avoy Shem Shalchu Leilamam, Ana Barachami, yes, Reim B'Seizen, Kana Vav Niyoi Lamim, Yitzhak B'Tzachem is Nishmas, Adonai Nachal Asam, Yinuchu Shem Mishkavay Sam, V'Naimar, Amen. And now to our sermon. So, many years ago when I lived in New York, there was a chap who called himself the Transporter. At the time there'd been a film about a transporter who used to, was a bodyguard, used to bring people from one place to another. Anyway, called himself the Transporter. Used to take people to the airport, things like that, in a van. And we were going once, I think it was the airport, and he says, you know, you lot, you're so predictable. He says, I can tell exactly what you're going to do from one day to the next, 1 week to the next, your services, your festivals, your Shabbat. It's always the same times and the same things. And I didn't explain to him that the times actually change throughout the year, but I said, you're right. You know what, you're right. Religion is very predictable. Judaism is about rituals. It's about predictability in many ways. There is a famous story which I've shared many times before in the Talmud where, you know, the rabbis always like to, you know, my dad's bigger than your dad kind of thing. They always like to outdo each other. And we know that it's okay when it's what's called kinat sofrim, when it's the jealousy and the sort of competition amongst the scholars to bring out the best in them. You know, that's how they would often come out with the new ideas in Torah. Understanding was precisely through pushing each other's buttons a little bit and arguing in a friendly way. So the rabbis were having a discussion. What's the most important verse in the entire Torah? So it's always good to do this in a crowd, but I can't, unfortunately. So probably, I'm sure someone somewhere would say, V'ahavta l'reacha kamecha, love your neighbor like yourself. The golden rule, the great principle of the Torah. Rabbi Akiva, right? Hillel said on one foot, this is Judaism. So Rabbi Akiva said, it's a great principle of the Torah. Okay? Fine. Ben Azai said, when it says, this is the book of the generations of man, on the day that God created man, B'Tselem de Musa, he made him in his image, is a greater principle that human beings are created in the image of God. This is a very powerful idea, which we often speak about how we behave and it impacts upon God's image. Very important verse in the Torah, that man is created in the image of God. Okay? Ben Zoma said, I've got one for you. Shema Yisrael. Right? The Shema, it's the fundamental verse of statement of faith of Judaism. And along comes Shimon ben Pazi, and he says, here's one for you. Something we find in this week's Sedra as well, we find in the book of Exodus, that you should bring an offering. You should bring a lamb in the morning, and a lamb in the afternoon, in the evening. And in the morning and in the evening, every single day. So Shimon ben Pazi, this is the most important, all-encompassing, fundamental verse in the Torah. What's going on here? You ask people the most important verse in the Torah, the Shema, love your neighbor like yourself. Man is made in the image of God. These are all wonderful concepts and principles. They make sense. The Korban Tamid, the daily offering, a lamb in the morning, a lamb in the afternoon. Leaving aside even the vegan sensitivities. What's so important about that? Why would that stand out above the Shema? You know, you don't hear stories about people that were going to their death and they suddenly cried out, a lamb in the morning, a lamb in the evening. It was always the Shema. So why is Shimon ben Pazi saying that this verse is so important? And the answer is very simple. Love your neighbor? Great. It's very important. Man is created in the image of God, also very important principles, no question about it. The Shema, statement of faith, big wow factor. Shema Yisrael, we say at the end of Ne'ilah. We say it at the end of our life. We say it at the beginning of our life when the baby is supposed to say Shema. We say it every day, very important statement of faith. Why is it so important to talk about the Korban Tamid, the daily offering? Precisely because it was daily. It was consistent. Every morning, every afternoon, the same thing. The next day, morning and afternoon. Tamid means eternal, always, continual, repetitive. Yes, predictable. It's easy to have the big splash. Yes, you should love your neighbor like yourself. Go out and do something for someone else. Fine. Believe in God, say the Shema, have deeply held principles of faith. Of course, that's important. Yes, 100%. Recognize the dignity of humanity. Yes, and all these other things. But whatever you do, you've got to do it consistently. We all know people who get excited one day about something, right? And how long does it last? It lasts a day, a week, a month. If you're lucky, how many of us are keeping our New Year resolutions still? Right? And we're only in July. Or if it's from last Rosh Hashanah, you've got slightly longer. That's human nature. It's easy to break a habit. We're creatures of habit. We like familiarity, but it's equally easy to break a habit. So whatever you're going to do with all these noble principles, which are very noble, it doesn't work unless it's consistent. Every morning, every afternoon. Every morning, every afternoon. The next day, the same thing. The next day, the same thing. I think this has been very relevant to us in recent times. We find ourselves in a situation where we've been home. We've not been able to go to shul until very recently. Thank God we're starting to make our way slowly and carefully back to shul, but some of us are still at home, of course. And we've had to find ways to keep up that consistency. I'm very proud and privileged to say that I have probably davened with a quote-unquote minion of people on Zoom for the last 3 months, except for Shabbos and Yom Tov. We've gone online every day. We've had, maybe sometimes 7 or 8 people, sometimes 12 or 13, plus people on Facebook Live, all praying together. We haven't stopped just because the shul was closed. I'm sure that people made Pesach. People do Friday night and Shabbat. People daven at home. People celebrate at home. They keep it up. And in fact, this week we went back to shul for the first time, and it's amazing to see. We had, thank God, a good minyan in shul of people. But we also had about 10 or 11 people joining us at home as well. So we doubled our numbers. We're keeping up that consistency. It's not the whole community. I wish everyone would come and daven every day. But we are, those of us who are dedicated, are keeping that consistency. It's not just davening, it's everything we do. It's every aspect of our lives. So that's why Shimon ben Pazi says this is so important. Consistency. It might be boring, might be repetitive, but that's what Judaism demands. Commitment. Consistency, repeatedly, every day of your life. You don't give up. You don't say, I'm having a few months off. And that's the message. And that's what we've had to do, often in quite creative ways for ourselves. And hopefully we'll be able to start doing again as a community more, of celebrating together. Not just the big occasions, the simchas, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. That's great, and we should do that. But every single day of our lives, celebrating our Judaism, following our Jewish traditions, and being consistent and committed in our approach. That's how we will keep going, ultimately. If we get out the habit, it's very hard to get back into the habit. So may we all have not just the fire and the excitement of Shema Yisrael, of brotherly love, of the dignity of the human spirit. That's all great, but may we have it continually and consistently every day of our lives so that we keep up our traditions and our faith. And when we are back in shul, and we're back in our social gatherings as well, we're not out of the habit of doing all those things that are so precious to us. I wish everyone a wonderful and a very safe Shabbat. Take care. Shabbat Shalom.